And that kind of stuff is all going to be now managed in this one scene. So let's get started. So I have my scene, I have my player. The first thing we're going to want to do here is let's add a rigid body. So you might have noticed, like when we run the game, nothing happens. The player just sort of sits there in space, right? If we add a new thing, so here we're going to add a component, and you got to be careful. There's two rigid bodies. One is for 3D, and the one that says 2D is specifically for 2D. And we're going to add this rigid body. And what this does is it tells the physics engine, which is Box2D, that basically you now have gravity. And gravity and drag and mass and all these things that you'd associate with the physics body are now applied to this one object. I believe, so if we run the game, you'll now see that he falls down, right? And he falls out of our world. So some things that we want to make sure that we check are fixed angle. So since this is a 2D game, when things collide, we don't want them to rotate or deflect. So in this case, we're going to make sure that this guy is fixed angle. Also, this is very important, and I noticed that this has been fixed. Well, it's been fixed several times and then reverts back, but sometimes you may have an animator, and by accident, apply root motion might be automatically checked. Now, this was a bug in earlier versions of the Unity 2D stuff. Basically, you need to make sure that if you're doing 2D stuff, that apply root motion is not selected. In the case that it is selected, and you were to run the game, gravity isn't going to work. In fact, you just get this sort of weird stutter. So I noticed that when I imported a bunch of projects from Unity 4.6 into Unity 5, apply root motion automatically got selected, and I can't remember now off the top of my head if 4.6 had it selected and ignored it or what. But long story short is that if you ever see that scenario when you're doing 2D games and it's just jittering and you're not getting any gravity, make sure that you have apply root motion is turned off in the animator. So now this is all working. Another important thing to note is that you'll see there's a difference between why this is bold and this stuff is just a normal font. You see down here is bold. And that's because we're making changes to the prefab and the scene itself. Now, if I was to select this prefab, you'll see that none of the changes we made are actually here now. Remember, what we have to do is go to the player and hit apply, and that saves the changes back. And the IDE is pretty good about giving you these visual cues. You see everything is no longer bold. And now if we go to the player prefab, you'll see that everything here is saved. So always be making sure that you're going through and hitting apply and you're saving these changes back to the prefab if you happen to be working on an instance in the scene. So now let's make a little platform for him to stand on. So we're going to go into game objects, we're going to go into 3D objects, and we're going to create something called a quad. And a quad is similar to a plane, but it's actually made up of two triangles. And even though it's in the 3D properties, it is very much 2D. So let's see if I can get a fix on where these guys are in space. Where's my quad? So this is the quad. It doesn't have any rendering material on the back of it, but it's definitely in 2D. And one of the things we want to do here is, and I was just seeing this in the camera, is that his Z space is set to 0. I don't know. Unity just likes to randomly throw down Z space. So let's just set this to 0, and now we'll see him in the scene down here.